Imagine waking up one morning to find that the country you've called home for years no longer wants you there. Families torn apart, businesses shutting down, and entire communities living in fear. This is the harsh reality for thousands of immigrants in 2025. Across the globe, countries are implementing drastic measures to expel migrants, citing reasons ranging from economic struggles to national security concerns. But what's really driving this global crackdown? Why are governments taking such extreme steps? And who is being affected the most? Today, we'll uncover the 10 nations that are aggressively deporting immigrants, exploring the controversial reasons behind these decisions. And trust me, some of these actions are not only shocking, but also raising serious human rights concerns. Stick with us till the end, as we reveal the country making the most drastic immigration changes this year. Number 1. Pakistan. Pakistan has launched one of the largest deportation campaigns in recent history. As of early 2025, the country has already expelled over 1.5 million Afghan refugees, with plans to remove even more in the coming months. The government justifies this mass deportation by citing national security risks and economic burdens. Officials claim that the presence of undocumented Afghans contributes to rising crime rates and puts pressure on limited resources. However, human rights organizations argue that these deportations are putting thousands of vulnerable people at risk. Many Afghan refugees fled their country due to the Taliban's takeover, and now they face an uncertain future upon returning. Reports of violence, lack of shelter, and even persecution have raised international concerns. But despite global criticism, Pakistan remains firm in its decision, making it one of the most aggressive enforcers of deportation policies in 2025. Number 2. United Kingdom. The UK's immigration policies have taken a drastic turn following Brexit, and 2025 marks one of the strictest enforcement years yet. The British government has tightened visa regulations, increased deportations, and made it significantly harder for immigrants to secure legal status. New policies prioritize British-born workers over immigrants, especially in industries like healthcare and hospitality. One of the biggest controversies is the UK's Rwanda asylum plan, which aims to send asylum seekers to Rwanda instead of allowing them to settle in Britain. Critics argue that this plan violates human rights and endangers vulnerable migrants. At the same time, businesses are struggling with labor shortages, as many industries relied heavily on immigrant workers. The UK's hardline stance is not only reshaping its labor force, but also sparking heated debates on whether these policies are sustainable in the long run. Number 3. United States. The United States has ramped up deportations under new policies aimed at reducing net migration. In 2025, U.S. immigration enforcement has set a record-high number of deportations, targeting both undocumented immigrants and visa overstayers. Stricter border controls, increased ICE raids, and tougher asylum policies are leaving thousands in legal limbo. One of the most controversial policies involves expedited deportations, where individuals can be removed from the country without a court hearing. Critics argue that this undermines due process and leads to wrongful deportations. Meanwhile, labor shortages in industries such as agriculture and construction are creating economic concerns. Despite pushback from immigration advocates, the U.S. government remains committed to enforcing its stricter policies, making the American dream harder to achieve for many. Number 4. Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia has long relied on migrant labor, but in 2025, the kingdom is aggressively deporting thousands of Yemeni workers. The government claims that these expulsions are necessary due to economic reforms and national security concerns. With high unemployment rates among Saudi citizens, officials are pushing for more jobs to go to locals rather than immigrants. However, the situation is particularly dire for Yemeni migrants. Many have fled war and famine in their home country, and being forced to return could mean facing extreme poverty or even death. Reports suggest that Saudi authorities are conducting mass raids, detaining thousands before forcibly deporting them. The crackdown is raising serious ethical questions, as many see these actions as inhumane, given Yemen's ongoing humanitarian crisis. Number 5. Italy. Italy has drastically changed its immigration policies under the new government. In 2025, the country has tightened asylum laws, increased deportations, and placed severe restrictions on undocumented workers. The government argues that the influx of migrants has strained public services and created security concerns. One major policy shift is the crackdown on migrant rescue ships in the Mediterranean. Humanitarian organizations that save drowning migrants are now facing legal consequences, with the government accusing them of encouraging illegal immigration. Meanwhile, thousands of asylum seekers are being denied entry or sent back to war-torn regions. Italy's new approach has drawn criticism from human rights groups, but the government remains firm in its belief that these policies are necessary to protect the country's interests. Number 6. France. France has implemented one of the toughest immigration laws in its history. In 2025, new regulations limit asylum applications, increase deportations, and tighten work permit requirements. The government claims that these measures are necessary to combat illegal immigration and maintain social cohesion. However, critics argue that these policies disproportionately affect North African and Middle Eastern migrants. Many immigrants are facing difficulties integrating due to language barriers, bureaucratic challenges, and rising anti-immigrant sentiments. Protests have erupted across France, with activists demanding fairer policies. Despite the backlash, the government insists that these laws will help ensure national stability and economic balance. Number 7. Russia. Russia has intensified its deportation efforts, particularly targeting workers from Central Asia. The government claims that these migrants are taking jobs from Russian citizens and contributing to economic instability. In 2025, new immigration laws have made it harder for foreign workers to obtain legal status, leading to mass deportations. However, industries such as construction and agriculture heavily rely on migrant labor. As a result, some businesses are already feeling the impact of these policies, struggling to find replacements for deported workers. Despite this, the Russian government remains firm in its stance, prioritizing native workers over foreign laborers. Number 8. China. China has historically had strict immigration policies, but in 2025, the government is taking an even harder stance. New laws are making it increasingly difficult for foreign workers and students to remain in the country. The government argues that these measures are necessary to protect local job markets and maintain social stability. Foreigners working in China now face stricter visa renewals, increased surveillance, and limited job opportunities. Many expats are choosing to leave voluntarily due to the hostile environment. While these policies are meant to prioritize Chinese citizens, they are also leading to concerns about China's ability to attract international talent in the future. Number 9. Spain. Spain is facing a humanitarian crisis due to the overwhelming number of migrants arriving from Africa. In response, the government has implemented tougher border controls, increased deportations, and restricted asylum applications. Officials argue that the country simply does not have enough resources to support the growing migrant population. However, human rights groups warn that these policies are creating unsafe conditions for migrants, many of whom risk their lives to reach Europe. With limited shelter and support, many are left stranded in dangerous conditions. The situation in Spain highlights the broader challenges of migration management in Europe. Number 10. Australia. Australia has long been known for its tough immigration laws, but 2025 has seen even stricter measures. The government is enforcing higher visa restrictions, increased deportations, and limiting refugee intake. These actions are driven by concerns over national security and economic stability. Despite facing criticism for its harsh policies, Australia continues to prioritize border control over humanitarian concerns. With fewer pathways to legal residency, many immigrants are finding it increasingly difficult to build a future in the country.